Coming up on this episode of Free Lunch.
Beatings were quicker, but they were more intense. He thrashed you with vigor and technique.
Tenacity.
Like if you moved to the left, he moved to the left with you. If you moved to the right, you couldn't get away from him. My mom wouldn't pursue you.
Hold on. He said, my father whooped you with vigor.
Yeah, like legit.
It disarms the power or the authority of the other parent who's doing it.
Yeah.
So when mom says, hey, keep it up, I'm going to tell your dad, or wait till your dad gets home, what does that do for your authority or power?
Exactly.
It just diminishes it.
And I had to take a moment and say, you know what, kid, I'm sorry I put you through that.
Wow, that's dope.
I didn't know any better. I did the best that I thought. I thought I was doing the best for you, and I realized there were so many better ways that I could have went about it.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy Freestyle Gospel, a.k.a. The Real Free, and this is Free Lunch, free food for your soul. Had my boy come back and check me out one more time. Kyle, what up?
It's good, brother.
Look, you only get one applause button only one time when you come here to the show. Now, when you come back after the first time, you don't get the applause. You get no applause, but all right, I'll give you a little applause.
I was gonna say,
all right, just gave you a little.
Is it like
I just gave you a taste?
Once you come to the house, you're not a guest. You got to get your own water out the fridge from now on, type of deal.
Kind of like that, but not totally, because I will give you look.
Okay.
I'll give you a taste of the clap.
Okay.
You get a taste. Okay.
I technically got 2 tastes now, so that's like a whole clap right there.
Bastard.
Nice. That's how you work the system, guys.
He's that
You gotta be smart.
No, but Kyle's actually a really, really close friend of mine's. We've known each other for a really long time. So for those of you, big ups too. Congratulations to you and all the success of your I Am King episode where you dropped the gems for the people on fitness. Literally was in our top 3 episodes.
Nice.
Which is shocking to me, not because you're not super dope, but I'm just like, wow, a lot of people are interested in this fitness stuff. So if you're listening, you didn't catch that episode, guys, make sure you go back and check out the I Am King episode. But today I wanted to chop it up with my man about, Free Lunch it was birthed out of the idea of really just me able to have a voice and share out, many of the just random different things that are on my mind from day to day as a husband, a parent, a creative. And so what's been on my mind today, or as of late, in which, why I wanted to invite you on to chop it up about, is this parenting deal. Now I have a really widespread of, children ages from soon to be 18 years old this month and all the way down to 11-year-old. So I have 11-year-old, 12-year-old, a 15-year-old, and then a 17-year-old. And I realized I do a lot of self-reflecting, which I know you are big on doing yourself. And we do 100%. That. We do a lot of self-reflecting in all aspects of our lives because we are always trying to be the best version of us. We're always trying to improve. Yep. And so doing some of my self-reflecting as of late or recently, it dawned on me how my wife and I got in this conversation about the idea came up about me potentially spoiling any future kids, and how one of my friends were like, oh man, you're going to be spoiling them. And I was like, no, I'm not that, type the one to be really not materialistic or giving my kids a ton of things. And they were like, no, not spoiling from a sense of that, but maybe just spoiling them by, being this more super patient person. I'm like, well, no, I kind of actually that's my parenting style already, with my present kids. And I realized, I started to think about, where do I get that from, that approach to parenting? And my mom, who's, praise God, she's still living. She was so big on, if I got in trouble for something, 2 things. One, she was big on not ever disciplining while she was angry or upset.
It's wisdom.
So, and then that would have led to the second thing. So the times that I can remember my mom really upset, I very rarely, if ever, like I can't think of ever, but I'm just, let's say just for ha-has, let's say maybe it was once. But of all of my like years being a kid growing up, I can't recall my mom yelling at me. And I imagine that had something to do with her not addressing me or something while she was upset. So anytime I can remember my mom, and I grew up a mama's boy, anytime I can remember my mom being upset with me or disciplining me, it was like this really calm approach. But it wasn't void of me not knowing she was extremely disappointed and pissed. It's just she had a way about conveying her being pissed without it needing all the traumatic, raw screaming, breaking crap, throwing stuff at me, or, beating me to death. Like, and that was another thing. Like, I think I can remember my mom, I got maybe 2 spankings in my life from my mom. But again, that probably had a lot to do with also the kind of kid I was. I was one that was so brokenhearted, probably because I was a mama's boy. I was brokenhearted to see my mom's face of disappointment.
Yeah.
Like I would cry, tears would come down my eyes. Like, so I didn't, were you a mama's boy growing up? No.
I just said I could relate because I know those type of people.
You know those people?
I was definitely not that guy.
What was were you like a really like this stubborn kid for both of your parents?
So here's the thing. No, the interesting thing was I was a middle of the road kid. So I was the youngest. And I had the privilege of having 2 older siblings who were rebellious. So.
Hold on. You said you had the privilege.
Yeah, because I seen what not to do.
Oh.
Right? I seen, so don't get me wrong, they also kind of masked my behavior, so I was able to fly under the radar. I, by in no shape or form, was an angel. But what I understood, like, my closest sibling was my older brother. He was ironclad, like, no lie, just to give you an idea of who he was the kid that understood the psychology. And he said, I'm not going to give my father the satisfaction of seeing me cry when he spanks me. Wow. And I am terrified because I'm like, well, if he don't get it out of you, he's coming to me. So my brother literally, he was the kid who was like, yo, I'm going to put books in my pants. Yeah. He always had to find a loophole.
He said books in his pants?
Yo, listen.
Your brother did not put books in his pants.
Bro, he tried books in his pants. But this one particular time he was older. And I mean, the kid, he's a genetic freak. And I never forget.
Hold on. I'm not going to let you just breeze over this. Your brother actually attempted at one point or another. He tried to actually put like physical books.
Like little comic books.
Inside of his pants.
Yeah, I don't think he attempted. He did it.
He did that.
He put comic books in his pants. He put comic books in his pants.
Did he ever get away with it?
Yeah. Yo, listen. Oh my God. If I tell you about my brother, the stuff that he used to do, he's part and parcel why I am the way I am. Yo, listen, man, this kid, I mean, he would think outside the box on so many levels. But he got to this certain age where he was getting bigger and he was determined not to give my dad the satisfaction. Him and my dad used to butt heads all the time. And I remember being terrified because he literally was like antagonizing my father. My father was whooping him. He's like, is that it? He's like making voices like a comic book character.
Wow, that's crazy.
So he's like, it was a good try that time. You should try again. And I'm sitting there going, oh my, like I could feel my heart pounding out of my chest because I'm going, he's going to kill me.
He's going to kill you.
However, you know what ended up happening?
What?
Just called it all off. I didn't even get a whooping.
Wow.
My dad just was like, all right.
So I mean, was your mom even a part of the like discipline?
My mom disciplined us as well. So we got whipped by both our parents. So if we had to choose, we would choose our mom. However, so because my mom,
I think everybody would choose that.
Because my dad thrashed you with his beatings were quicker, but they were more intense. He thrashed you with vigor and technique.
Tenacity.
Like if you moved to the left, he moved to the left with you. If you moved to the right, you couldn't get away from him. My mom wouldn't pursue you.
Hold on. He said, my father whooped you with vigor.
Yeah, like legit vigor. And so it in my mind, I was like, yeah, I'd much rather not. So I was more complacent. Like I watched my brother and how he interacted. So for me, I always knew as soon as he touched me, I'm gonna cry as much as I can. My whoopings were always shorter. I was OD, got it over with.
So who was so is it safe to say your mother was the more patient?
Yeah, but okay. But my mom would whip you. But the thing about it with my mom, and it's just because of the way we were wired. Like we would test our mom more. So my mom wouldn't move. She would sit on the edge of the bed, and she would expect you to stand in front of her. So that means when she hits you, if she hits you with a good one, we just step outside the door. She'd be like, you better get your butt. You play it off, you buy yourself some time. However, it was a longer process. My mom had a count in her head. She didn't tell you what it was, but you were gonna get sometimes you were gonna get 3 lashings, sometimes it'd be 10, depending on what you did, and you never knew the count. So I was like, I need a minute to recover because I don't know how many is coming. The problem with my mom is like sometimes we would catch the belt. Or we would move and then she'd hit herself and then she'd add more to it. But we knew we couldn't get away with that with our dad, because if we did that with our dad, again, he whips you with vigor and precision.
And tenacity.
Yeah, and tenacity.
No.
Right?
So with having 2 parents who both are willing to give you the business, okay, so for me, I knew I was going to, it impacted how much I sought to, I think, maybe please my mom that much more, because I appreciated just how more seemingly patient she was. And I think it helped, if anything, it motivated me to correct whatever the behavior was that, I did wrong or whatever, because I at least I felt like it genuinely was hurting my mom. Like to see her son, do wrong in this, or, it led me to see her disappointed rather than her rage. I was seeing my mom's disappointment, not rage. And I think because I was able to see the disappointment, it inspired or encouraged me more to be like, this is like, all right, I should stop doing it, or I shouldn't do that again. So, I took that and implement it into my parenting like ASAP. Like I was like, when I have kids, I want to basically the feelings that I had that were equal measure, correction, but still feeling like, mom's got my back, mom loves me, mom supports me, all of that, like all that emotional stuff. I wanted that to all kind of be all in one shot and conveyed with my kids. What was the thing for you that you felt was the greatest thing you could take from either of your parents and offer your kids?
So what's interesting is I definitely didn't take that approach. When I got in trouble, it was like, damn, I'm mad I got caught. Like I never looked at my parents' disappointment. What I will say is I always felt loved by both my parents. Like I never felt the disparity. My dad was really fun. He just wasn't to be toiled with. And so I knew that. So I knew when I crossed certain lines that you just got to suck it up. He was going to give you the long speech. He was going to blow your whole afternoon. He wasn't. My mom was the more gentle one. She would always, like they both talk, but my mom obviously she would have that soft, soothing voice, which was kind of misguiding because you're about to whip me. Like my dad spoke to you sternly, like, now you know better. And he was like, it makes sense that I'm about to get whipped. But my mom would be now Kyle. She would be so soothing and gentle, and it would almost be trance like oh yeah.
I've heard one of my daughters say a similar thing.
Yeah.
They're like, Dad, you're always so calm. So you being calm really doesn't help us be less afraid. We know at any minute now.
It's a trap. So she's, and baby, this is why I'm disappointed in that.
That's right, man.
And then it's like, all right, now turn around. Like, wait, I thought we broke ground here. I understood what you said. And it's like, no, you still about to get these lashes, and you don't know how many. So what was the thing you took from them? For me, one of my things is, and this is, and this goes to the self-reflection that you talked about. As I started getting older, I looked back and I actually said to my parents, I actually told my parents, and at their varying times, like I felt like they should have been harder on me.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I was allowed to do things that translated negatively when I got older because I lacked discipline in specific areas. And so for me, it kind of was a negative in the beginning. Like I always tell the story, my oldest son, he was my pet project. I was 19 years old. I was stupid, right? I'm still a kid myself, to be honest with you, trying to make adult decisions. And then I have a son. And so for me, with the state of mind that I had, like I made all these bad choices. I wish my parents were harder on me. I was like, I'm not going to let him make the mistakes. And instead of, You know, so the early part, like I was super hard on him, like ironclad. I mean, he's a U.S. Marine now, so maybe some of it was beneficial, but I learned throughout the years that I had to dial it back. Like I was the sole disciplinarian, which was a bad thing because his mother and I weren't together. So literally, and I don't know why, but it was my youth, and I had to learn. She would call me on Mondays like, he needs to be punished because he did X, Y, and Z, but he's not coming to my house till Friday. So Friday the kid shows up, and now he's in trouble for something he probably doesn't even remember he did. Yeah. And so as time progressed, I told her, like, no, you got to address that on because now he's coming to me and he thinks he's only coming because he's in trouble.
Yeah. Now it demonizes.
Yeah, I am the discipline. The only reason you see me, because, you know, he was much like his dad. He would do a lot of stuff. Yeah. And I think also, too, if it was more tended to at the time, he probably would have been less likely to do it. It got to the point where his response was, I'm going to be in trouble anyway when I see the old man, so I'm going wild out now while ain't nobody going to do nothing. Yeah. And once I recognized that, I had to reshift. So he was such a learning project for me. Even just in the way that I taught him or I learned that you couldn't teach him certain aspects. Like, you know, when he was coming up, I was heavy into fighting, martial arts, and I always had this fear, like, you know, it's my son. I don't want my son to be a punk. I don't want him to get bullied. So I always teach him, oh, you got to fight back. And my girlfriend at the time had a nephew. He was a little older. And so I would have them put on the gloves. And he'd just wail away. And I'm like, Kim, you got to fight back. Like, I don't care if you win. I need you to fight back. He wouldn't fight back. It's like, oh, it's my friend. And I was like, and I soon learned. I mean, don't get me wrong. He was learning his lessons, but he didn't. I don't know why he didn't. Maybe it was too much pressure for him. Maybe he felt like he needed to win. But we finally met middle ground. Like, he had a tough situation and he fought back and he took care of the business. But what I realized is you can't teach your kids hard. You can't force your kid into something that they're not passionate about. And that translated to a lot of things, even sports. I learned, like, I can't live vicariously through him. Just because I like martial arts don't mean he like martial arts. And I can't force him to love martial arts. Now, I could train him. I could teach him and give him basic foundation because you do need these skills. But at the end of the day, I can't make you respond to it the way I respond to it.
Yeah, facts.
So these are things I had to learn coming up.
So I've heard, like, working in the school system, I heard this quote, and I always forget who came up with the quote. But it was an educator poster I saw that says, the kids won't remember the things you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. Yep. Right? I try to have that in mind, or keep it in mind when I'm parenting with my kids. And it's really feeling how they feel when I am correcting them matters so much to me. And I think it matters so much because, one, just because I believe in the principle, but also because as an adult, man, I can see when I'm doing kind of like my self-analysis or self-assessment, I can see how present day, the way I feel about, you know, not just my parents, but whether it's parents, siblings, anything, it comes from something. And the crazy part is, it's not that you can ever put your finger on it, on memory so long ago when you were a kid and go, yeah, I remember you said this or you said this, and that's why, you know, ever since then, you know, I feel like this about you. Or I feel like you just have the feeling left a lot of times, and you can't trace where it came from, what conversation it came from, but you have the feeling. So, you know, I'm taking that a lot, implementing that a lot into, I don't know if my parents were aware of necessarily that, you know, quote, or if that it was even
I know mine weren't
out back then, but I think, you know, like my dad, he was, you know, super funny, hilarious. Like, you know, that's where I get my, you know, comedic, you know, spirit from, always had us cracking up. But kind of like how you said, to your point, you know, knew our dad loved us or whatever, but he was not to be like, not to be played with. He was like the no playing games parent. And it was unfortunate that kind of also, like you mentioned, my and I don't think my mom was intentionally trying to do this, but we eventually moved from Connecticut and moved to Virginia for a period of time, from 8th grade all the way through high school. And so she did a lot of, threatening me from time to time with
your dad.
I'm gonna call your dad. Yeah. So it's like the majority of the memories I have living in Virginia and interactions with my dad while living in Virginia, like on the phone or phone calls, were all like negative phone calls.
Reprimanding.
I could think of maybe once or twice where I was in Virginia on a phone call with my dad, and it was like a good phone call, or
that's so bad.
And so it was like that became the demonized parent in a sense. And again, I don't think my mom was trying to do that intentionally,
it's a
create
defense.
some wedge, but it's something that it's commonly done, I think, in our society. Like people do it all the time. I watch in grocery stores, kids parents do it with their kids and police.
Yep.
When their kid is acting up in the store and there's like a police, officer in the store or something, you keep it up. I'm gonna have that police officer come get you.
Gonna arrest you.
Like, why do that? And so now that kid grows up already with the complex.
Don't like police. Or exactly.
So doing that with parents, whether it's the mom or the dad, doing it, I was like, I'm gonna scratch that out. I'm not gonna do that because one, not only does it have that negative effect, but also it disarms the power or the authority of the other parent who's doing it.
Yeah.
So when mom says, hey, keep it up, I'm going to tell your dad, or wait till your dad gets home, what does that do for your authority or power?
Exactly.
It just diminishes it.
And so I understand, right, because there was a time where there was a place for that, where that was originated from the idea like, okay, I've done all I can and y'all getting out of hands. Now I'm going to let your father handle it.
Yeah.
Right. But it's not to say what diminishes it now is that at this point, sometimes you see it all the time. The mothers aren't even intervening. They're not
at all. Yeah.
So it's just like, oh, I don't got nothing to worry about till my dad comes.
Exactly.
So if you got a deadbeat dad who ain't gonna show up, guess what I'm about to do? Everything. Exactly. More importantly, if you have a father who's involved, and so that's why I said it was so incumbent upon me to figure out how to do it. So I would talk to him about it. I would still address the issue like, hey man, your mother told me earlier this week you was being disrespectful. That's unacceptable, right?
Yeah.
But that would be the extent of it. I'm not taking away your PlayStation. I'm not locking you in your room. I'm not spanking you for it, because that wasn't my issue to address. That was hers to address, and it's mine to reinforce. And what a lot of parents fail to realize is when you show the chinks in your armor, when you are not on the same page, I don't know why, kids are innately designed to play one against the other.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just in our nature built in as a kid.
Exactly.
Like the goal is to try to get through with the least adverse consequence, or so you don't have to teach a kid that. Just like you don't have to teach a kid to lie, right?
Exactly.
You have a 4-year-old caught in the cookie jar, and you're like, did you take that cookie? And they're like, no. And no one had to teach them.
And here's the thing, right? And this is why I know communication is key, because I don't think my parents communicated well, because there were times where my mother would put me on punishment, and I don't know if she told my father. So my punishment is, you got to stay in your room, you can't watch TV. But here's the thing. My dad would go in the living room and watch TV, and now I just go sit with my dad. Yeah. And my dad watched all the stuff all the movies that I liked growing up, my dad was into all that. Rambo, Terminator. Yeah. So he always had a good movie on. And then I just be like, oh, I'm just hanging out with dad. Exactly. And that was the loophole. And instead of them communicating, getting on the same page, like, no, you're not supposed to watch TV. Vice versa. My dad would put me on punishment, but my mom had the heartstrings. I'm like, Ma, it was so much. He put me on punishment for 2 weeks. Yeah. I just want to go outside and see my friends. Ma. And she couldn't take the nagging. So eventually she'd be like, you know what? Just go outside. And that's it. You want to go? That's fine, Kyle. Just go. I knew I could wear mom down. Yeah. Dad, you couldn't do that. The more you dug, the deeper he dug, which is, I think, where I got it from. If I tell you no and you keep asking, you're only making the no extend until like next year. Just let it go.
Now, having the you have the like also unique experience of, just like as myself, having to navigate, not only like you have influence in your parenting, whatever your upbringing and background was, right? But then you have, obviously we have children with another person, right? We can't have kids alone, right? So then that person has their childhood experience and experience with parenting. Yeah. what would you say has been the biggest? I'll answer first, actually, and I'll just ask you the question so you could think while I'm answering it. The biggest hurdle to jump across when it comes to your parenting approach, and that may not be the approach your wife or your kid's mother wants to take because of a result of their experience as a kid. So one of the biggest hurdles, like for me, was kind of like the consistency or follow through. Like, and probably the follow through was really a bigger problem because I had 3 girls, right? So my daughter's mom, you know, she's a no nonsense person, but I think because we had girls, you know, it's like harder. It's like, let's, you know, these, you know, our sweet little girls, you know, kind of like coddling a bit, or being moved by their tears, and for me it's like, yo, girl or boy, it doesn't matter. They need consistency and follow through of whatever the consequence is going to be, and I don't care how much of the boo-hooing or crying or how cute they are. This is the consequence. So I struggled a lot with their mom at times of just wanting to follow through. So we had, I think, a fairly good communication part. Like you mentioned that, communicating with the other parent, at least, like, hey,
be on the same page.
You know, if we're all living together in the same household, you know, this kid, make sure this kid doesn't get to do this. Or if you're in 2 different households, hey, just so you know, heads up, when so-and-so comes over your house, they're still serving my punishment over here. They're not supposed to be watching TV. Yep. So, you know, I was able to, you know, thankfully we had good communication, but it was always that kind of like sticky spot where it's like, could they come off? Or I know they're supposed to be serving this punishment for 2 days, but they did really good the first day. Could they get? And it's like,
Interestingly enough, I originally didn't have that continuity. So my first 2 kids are about 6 years apart. So my oldest, and kudos to him because he was an easy kid. But I struggle with the disparity between boy and girl, right? Because my second child was a girl. And I found, and ironically, it was my son who pointed it out to me telepathically. He didn't say a word, but I'll never forget. My daughter was in the kitchen. She was doing something, and I kept telling her, hey, sit down. Hey, don't make me repeat myself again. Hey, Now, my son knows I don't repeat myself. Mm-hmm. If I say don't make me repeat myself again, it's going to be ugly after that. Yeah. And so I must have said it to her 3 or 4 times, and then I glanced across the room, and he just had this look on his face. And he didn't say a word, but the look on his face was basically looking at me going, now, if that was me, you know it'd be over, wouldn't it? I'd
be knocked clear across this floor.
And it's crazy because, he was only like 7 or 8. Like, he wasn't even that, but he had this, the look. I wish I could have took a picture, because if a picture could say 1,000 words, his face said 10 million. He just looked at me and was like, I don't believe this. And so I said, get over here. And I realized, because she was a little girl, my philosophy is, my boy, when we go outside, he can fall and skin his knee. My little girl cannot. That was my.
Got you.
And that's how I approached it. And so I was so much more patient and gentle with her.
Yeah.
Also, you got to remember, there was a 6-year gap. I was 19 when I had him.
Yes.
Now I'm older.
Yes.
And so, but he saw the disparity, and then I realized it, and I was like, I need to be more consistent, and follow through, because she really is testing me, and I'm thinking, because I have him, and I was like, oh, I got it all figured out. I'm still dumb. I got it all figured out. This kid listens to me. He's a good kid. She's going to be a piece of cake. Nope, whole different kid. And so you really want to be on the same page as parents, whether you're in the same house or not, because you're going to come up against so many things. The more children you have, the more personalities you got to deal with, the more nuance you have to figure out. And so if you have a ironclad baseline standard, it's easy to get everybody on the same page, because at least you can always default to that.
Yes, if you have a baseline.
Yeah.
But you got to have a baseline.
But most times you do not. And like you said, it generally originates from the upbringing. Like, I've been in situations where I came from the strict house, and then I've met people that they didn't really have, and not because they were bad, but maybe because they were good kids and their parents didn't really have to interact. So it's just foreign. This isn't. I don't know what this is. This doesn't exist.
Yes.
So they just don't know how to deal with it. And so here you come with your typhoonism.
Yes.
And they're just like, no, we are on the beach.
That's not necessary.
It's calm. See,
none
waves.
of this is necessary.
It's like, no, it is.
Relax, Kyle.
Yeah. And so it's
you're having too much vigor. There's way too much vigor in your
and precision.
But it's good to at least be able to identify for yourself as the parent what facets or aspects of your parenting comes from as a result of your upbringing. I think to identify that, one is like a hurdle in and of itself. I don't think really people are present of mind or do that kind of self-assessing, like reflecting to go like, why do I do what I do? Why do I say what I say? And I think as I got those kind of internal nuggets about me, about who I am, like, look at that, right? Like the more self-discovery there is, look at how like beneficial it is and trickles out through the rest of your life. Yep. Whether, it's out through your marriage, out your parenting, friendships. I know self.
Yep.
I first know myself. Yep. And that's going to help me with my approach in all these other relationships because I know me. So, and I find that it brings me to a place, with my kids, they know like I'm so super transparent with them. Like, and I was like one where I think another nugget I took from my mom was when with her parenting, she was one to like come back to you and admit if she was wrong.
I definitely adopted that.
And so with my, girls, with my son, it doesn't happen a lot of times. One, because I take that other tip from my mom. I don't immediately react. Like I don't react when I'm angry. So because you've taken that time away off rip, you get time to actually process your first approach. Yeah. So usually if you had time to process, your first approach would be fairly, the right approach. But the few times here and there where like, I might have jumped the gun or I, erroneously accused them maybe of something and come to find out later, dang, that wasn't even their fault. Yeah. You as a parent have to be able to humble yourself and say, you know what, that's my bad, y'all. Like, daddy was wrong. I didn't mean, or if it was just like, if you did catch yourself in a totally out of character moment and you went like way off the chain, to be able to go back and be like, hey, listen, like, you still was wrong, about that. You shouldn't have done this and that, but I had a bad day early at work. I really shouldn't have went psycho mode on you like that. Like, and that really teaches not only your kids, it teaches them compassion. It obviously helps and benefits their mental health, like from, just psychological or, verbal trauma. But also it teaches them communication, healthy communication. Yeah. And I now see how I, should communicate to my kids, or even before they have kids, how I should communicate. What's healthy communication with a relationship, intimate relationship.
And I was gonna say, it's as good as it is for yourself to be able to do that. Like it's most important because you are patterning something for your child that is mandatory. It's something necessary in life. Yes. Like the people who can never own their stuff are the worst. Yes. Are the worst. Right. Yes. And because it's so easy. And like, going back to that time. So Cam had recently come to visit. He was older now. And we started talking about Malachi, who was in karate. And Malachi, was able to verbalize, which is good that I'm his daddy now, as opposed to his daddy when he was Cam's age, because he said to me, I'm afraid to spar. And I said, that's fine, baby. You don't have to go. Because but now, mind you, I've been doing this for years, and I know don't go to sparring if you're not ready to spar. Yes. Don't even bother, right? And so I don't think I would have had that mentality. Well, what you mean you're afraid? You better get up off your right? But what was profound is Cam said to me, "Oh, what's wrong with Pootie?" He said, "Teach him like you taught me." And I had to take a moment and say, "You know what, kid? I'm sorry I put you through that."
Wow, that's dope.
I didn't know any better. I did the best that I thought. I thought I was doing the best for you, and I realized there were so many better ways that I could have went about it. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
That's crazy. What was his response?
you know, I think he was kind of caught off guard, but he was like, nah, you straight, Dad. Like, you know, it worked out. You good. But like, I think he appreciated it.
You know that reminds me of like another phenomenon that I think is at work for the kid who genuinely just loves their parent, whether their parent got it right or wrong.
Yeah.
Is that as kids, we do a lot of trying to like give our parents the benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Like we do a lot of filling in the gaps for you in our mind because we love you and we know you love us.
Yeah.
But what we might be experiencing in the moment might be like the most horrific thing. It might be, but we know somehow, like, I know this person loves me. I know, and I think I did so much of that for both of my parents. But like, you know, in your case, you know, talking about your male son, I realized my father just loved me from all the countless hours of working he did, coming home tired, exhausted, not really ever seeing him have like fun to himself. Like I didn't grow up seeing my dad have a bunch of the fellas over watching TV or like he was either gone because he was at work or when he was home, I watched him sleeping. Yep. Or, you know, and then when he was awake, he was, you know, joking with us here and there. And, you know, and being the, you know, serious, you know, parent, you know, running the show like he does. But, you know, when I got older, I had my parents doing what the reflection you said you did with Cam, right? I would have, you know, have conversations and my dad kind of, you know, be really, really sorrowful or whatever. And it kind of be like, you know what, totally respect that and appreciate that, Dad.
Yeah.
But like, I kind of already like filled in those gaps for you back when we were young.
Yeah.
Like I knew you weren't being this super like always yelling, mad, strict person because you didn't love me or didn't care about me. Like I knew you were this 16-year-old teenage parent yourself, one, and you were now with all these kids now, like
he was even younger and dumber,
busting your behind to like, you know, work and just to make the, you know, make ends meet or whatever. So it didn't make it didn't make it any more right, right? None less. But I understood that like, listen, you know, there's a reason for this. It doesn't make it necessarily good or bad or whatever. And I appreciated that they were able to come back like you did. Like being able to at least do that, even if you feel like the moment's passed. Like, well, what's the point now? My kids are all grown up and they're all adult.
Because I got the information now and I need them to know that I know and that I'm taking accountability for it, even if I couldn't fix it.
But even with Cam's response to being like, oh, nah, you straight, Dad. Like, it might have even looked on the surface like it was like half, like, nah, you straight.
Yeah.
But who knows that when he went back home, that really actually like marinated and sat in his mind for a minute to be like, that's what's up. And maybe something that he may have done that he needs to be able to be mature enough to swallow and humble himself. Maybe it could be that more easy for him because he just watched his dad, his first example in life of a man, and do that for him. That's the thing, yo. Being able to just be that example. I'm taking those nuggets from my own experience growing up as a kid, things I didn't like, things that I later found out wasn't the greatest, and I'm now spitting them out the best I can. And I tell my kids, like, yo, I mean, the transparency I've had in some conversations, like if you were to be just a bug on the wall or had a speaker to the wall and not actually see what's happening, but just listening to the conversation on my end, you would have thought in some context that I'm talking to another adult, my age, like peer. Like I've said to my kids, my teenagers, namely, that like when I'm in the middle of giving like a consequence, because that's the other thing I've done. Like I've seen my mom do is right. Like you're giving a consequence or you're about to, and you go, you know what? This is what's wrong. This is what you shouldn't have been doing. You know what? How about you tell me what consequence you think is right?
I hated that.
So of course, right?
It's like a setup.
So of course, right? They don't ever know what to respond with. So I always do this because I'm big on faces. So I finally come up with the consequence, of course, and then now there's the face. Now I got to see their face, and I always say, "Hey, listen. If you think I'm so wrong, I've already afforded give you an opportunity to tell me what you think is a fair consequence. You don't have one. And you know what? I'll do you even an extra solid. I'll go the even further distance to be humble right here in the spot. Not 10 years from now, not when you've grown and I'm reflecting. I can confess to you right here and right now that even my decided consequence may be totally wrong. It might be the absolute wrong decision.
But it's the one we got now.
But I'm telling you that I, in this moment, am simply doing the best I know to do.
That's right.
But letting them know that 10 years from now, I might have some more knowledge, have an epiphany, and go, you know what?
You'll revisit it.
You know what? Now that I reflect on that, because when you were doing your approach with Cam, you thought that was the best
this is
thing
what we
for
needed.
You weren't trying to be malicious. I wasn't trying to be a bully or.
I wanted my son. I wanted to know that my son can proceed because he wasn't with me all the time, and it's like I don't want anybody to think they could just do anything to my son.
And why I needed them to know that piece, though, it's specifically though the part that says, "Hey, listen, I may be doing it wrong," is because then the next thing I would say is, "But when you have children, you can have a chance. You'll have a chance to do it better than me."
That's right.
And I left that there to say, to also kind of give them insight in knowing how very difficult my role is as the parent right now, is so that they would know really being a parent and coming up with the right consequence for you, as much as you might think, because I'm the parent and like wielding all this power.
Manual, we just
like as much as
chapter 2 real quick.
Like as much as you think this is like easy for me, one, it's not, because I love you. I don't like to see you, hurt or sad, right? And two, because I'm hoping I'm picking the right consequence that leads to change behavior, choices. That leads to better. So I'm simply doing the best I presently know to do. And this, when you only will have my perspective of how difficult this is mentally, of trying to figure it out when you are in my side. When you're on the other side across from your kid, you'll get the aha moment, hopefully, one day and go, this is really not that easy. Because I know I should do something. Like, I can't let you continue to go on through life thinking that this is cool. Right? So I should respond somehow, whether, okay, fine. You decide, I'm never going to pop my kids or spank them. Okay, great. But then you got to fill something. You're going to fill
in the gap with something.
You're going to have to figure out what's going to be the thing that's going to work and change this behavior. Is it going to be just time, minutes in the timeout corner?
Out, please face the corner.
I don't know, but guess what? When that doesn't work, now again, you'll be frustrated trying to figure out what am I going to do, and that mess is hard.
So I had a philosophy because one of the biggest things that I ran into was the disparity. A lot of people are like, oh, you shouldn't beat your kids, right? But I'm a Bible man. The Bible says, "Spirit of rod, spoil the child." Right. But I also understand that there are people who have abused children, which is why we have all these things in place.
Yes,
and
facts.
So I tell people my philosophy, honestly, when there's a little sweet spot, because when they're babies, you ain't really got to do much. When they get to a certain age, you pop them tenderly into because what I realize is
the finger pluck.
What I realize is at a certain age, you can't rationalize with a toddler. You can't explain to him.
Exactly.
Like, he can't comprehend until he feels it. And you don't want to feel like, hey, if you touch the stove, it's hot. It's going to burn your hand. It's going to burn for weeks afterwards. It's going to leave a scar. They don't get that. They're like, oh, it's going to pus up. It might get infected. They don't care about none of that.
Yo, look, to your point, I had my, one of my kids, I won't put them on blast or embarrass them, but one of my kids in their infancy, they had this really bad condition or behavior, practice, if you will, of when they would poop in their diaper, putting their fingers in their pamper. And trying to put it in their mouth, right? So so the few times that their mom and I, caught them, we, tell them like, no, you can't do you're trying to raise our voice, and scare. But it didn't work. So I remember us having another one of their checkup visits with their pediatrician. And it was hilarious because the pediatrician, in so many words, with as much as nonverbal cues she could give us, or looks, or kind of eye raises, she was in but so many words saying, you need to pop that kid's hand of it, because this is medically not okay. So this is not just about you're mad that they went on your work desk and knocked your papers off and you're trying to pop their hand for that. No, if you don't get across to them,
they will be sick. And probably die.
Your kid could get sick and could potentially die
Somebody needs you to go ahead and chop that thigh.
So I need you to pop that little pamper. I need you to
just one. That's all I need.
They need to get that across. So again, like you said, you have people who obviously, abuse Israel.
Yep.
That's a real thing.
Yep. And in no way are we promoting abuse.
Absolutely not. But, you know, to your point, it's healthy enough to communicate as not just communicate in general, but communicate as transparently and authentically as possible to your kids, even if they're little. Like, it doesn't take you had experience with, you know, Cam when he was older, but you know, I don't know if you've had any other reflective moments like that with your younger kids while they're still young.
Yeah,
but
100%.
Going back to them when they're young, having those moments early on to be able to be, as an adult, bring yourself down to their level and say, sorry, daddy was wrong. Like, that's so healing on so many levels. And I've appreciated definitely myself every time my parents have done that to me. In the last maybe 10 years, I've had an overwhelming amount of that from the both of them. But again, I'm so far now into my own role as a parent.
Yeah.
I have 4 kids.
Yeah. Same.
You know, it's not to say like, you know, it didn't matter or didn't need to do it. I appreciate them so much for doing it, but it was kind of like, I get it so much because I'm
doing it.
I've been a parent doing this thing that you guys had to figure out on your own as teenagers. I've been doing it myself for 17 years now. So big up, man. Let me get a hint. Big up to the parents, man, out there who are humbling themselves, man, being able to be big enough to do that for your kids, man. But, yo, before we close out, like always, you know, this is free lunch, free food for your soul. We got to give the people, man, something to take away that's edifying for their soul, man, for this show. What is it for you, man, that you think in this thing so complicated called parenting, yo, in this day and age that we're in, whatever, with all that we see going on in society, whatever it is, with mental health, with even young kids, like, you know, teenage suicide, stuff like that, skyrocketing, taking in all that into account, what's the biggest takeaway you want parents who are navigating that role to hear today? And even taking in the whole like co-parenting thing, because that can't be, you know, negated either. Like,
absolutely not. That is the prevalent situation these days. If I'm being honest. I would say for all parents, no matter what the situation looks like, understand that your kids, whether they know it or not, crave structure. They need control. And just, if you lead with your heart, if you love your child and you really consider the long-term consequences of the decisions you make, I believe you will always be at least in the ballpark. We're never going to get it right 100% of the time.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Listen, to this day, I'm 20 years a parent and I still got to apologize to my youngest kids.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But even being capable of doing that is a blessing. It's a benefit, and it pays dividends so much further down the road.
Yes.
And so that's it, man. In order to structure your kids, though, you got to operate with some type of structure. Make sure you give them what they need. Allow them to know that they're... And the truth of the matter is, unfortunately, what kids have to know in life is that everything has a consequence. Now, the word consequence gets a negative rap because they always look at it as, oh, you
negative. But there's positive consequences.
Like, right? I came to this spot. The consequence is that I'm now on your podcast.
Yes.
I gave you $5. The consequence is that I got candy from your store.
Yes.
Whatever the case may be, it was an exchange.
It's a response.
That's all it is. It's a response. Action in, action out. Cause and effect.
Yes.
And when you look at it like that, it makes it easier to understand that these small things turn into bigger habits. So if I let my kid think that he could do whatever he wants now, he may expand outside of my home because that's the only training he's got.
Yes.
And he's going to go somewhere where somebody's going to let him know the absolute opposite, and it may not end in a good manner. So you have to protect your children from day one.
Yes.
From day one, they're a blank sheet, right? And only thing that is impressed upon your kids is that which you impress upon them. So if you don't teach them, something will stick. So make sure you're the one writing on those blank sheets, because once they leave your house, they got a whole bunch of other influencers who are more than willing to scribble their principles and their morals on that paper.
Facts. I'm going to leave you guys with this, man. Appreciate that gem drop, King. The edifying knowledge for the soul. I think the takeaway I want, as I sit here, man, and just ponder for a minute, is for people, for parents who are parenting in the house with your kids or co-parenting with another outside the house parent, either way, be self-aware. Be performing and acting in your most conscious self and state when you're parenting in all facets, not just when you're dishing out a consequence, but even when you're loving on your kids or you're planning an event or a game night or no matter what facet of parenting it is or co-parenting, be intentional and self-aware. Know why it is you're doing what you're doing, why it is you're saying what you're saying. And lo and behold, I think automatically I think it's beneficial for your kids. But what I hope and what I know to be true for my self experience at least is that not only will it be beneficial for your kids, but you'll be surprised of how much benefit you garner from being more self-aware in the moment, pondering or past the moment, spending time in your room alone, just thinking, why do I approach these situations this way? Why do I say what I say in this context, in this situation, man? And I think it'll go a long way. Like my man Kyle said, these things pay dividends for years down the road. It's not always about today or the moment. We are trying to parent and do the best we can for today, tomorrow, and the next day, man. Yo, it's free food for your soul. Free lunch with my man, Kyle Jones, man. I'm going to give him a full hand clap as we air out, man.
My man.
Yo, thank you, bro, for coming through,
Absolutely.
yo. Until next time, holla at your boy. Peace.
Peace.